I'm good. Started off the new year really well. Your freckles and jewelry look
Oh,
great as
thanks.
always. Oh, just so beautiful.
Thanks. Thanks, squirrel.
You're welcome, girl. And thank you for going live off of yours since mine
No,
wasn't working.
I like to be solution oriented. I'm like, no, there's other ways. So we're here. It's
Period.
Friday.
We love a good pivot.
Yeah, love a good pivot. Always, always. Truly. Oh man.
Yeah, it was crazy getting here. But we here. I'm
Yeah.
excited. It's weird because I'm supposed to be hosting.
You're still
But
the host. You're still the host. I'm just an accessory. I'm just the invitee. It's all good. It's all good.
period. And look, people are making it. People, they can still see it. And that's the important
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for those who don't know, I mean, most of y'all know who Jaconna is because this is her live. But for those of you who don't know, Jaconna is that girl. I think a lot of people don't understand what a creative director is. They don't understand how having a creative director on your team is really essential. Like people think that it is like, it's an accessory or it's something like when I get enough money, I'm gonna get a creative director. It's like, nah, bruh.
Yeah.
A creative director should probably be the first person on your team.
Definitely. Put your investment to that, please. My God.
Yes, before a manager, before PR, before a label, anything, lock in with a creative director because most creative directors are multi-talented, right? So it's like
For
they're
sure.
usually a photographer, a videographer, a stylist, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like they have another skill.
Right. And shout out to the PR girlies because they're important too. I love anybody who puts in the work behind the scenes, but I think too, just bringing on a creative director, I think more times than not they do have connections and friendships and just things that they can leverage. Kind of similar to how you hire a stylist and you go to New York Fashion Week,
Right.
you're utilizing their connection. So yeah, we're definitely not a one show pony for sure.
At all. You guys are really just like the Swiss Army knife that you have in the arsenal. Like from
I'm dead, yeah.
no, but you really are like when we started working together, we were working together on Zaya Bell, and of course I knew that you would help with the creative. What I did not expect was for you to pitch her for opportunities where she was able to, get coverage for PR and press because that wasn't in your job title. For
Yeah.
you to curate her entire release party. You did her whole fucking release party. She wouldn't have had one if it wasn't for you.
Oh,
and
thanks.
and it wasn't, you didn't just rent a venue, you had like a curated, like drinks were made for her. It was an experience. Like
Yeah.
there was so much thought and detail put in there where it's just like, oh, if you don't know, get you a Jaconna. If you
I'm
don't know what
crying.
she does, if you don't know what that is, that's what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about a creative director, like what a creative director does, and more importantly, we're here to shine light on Jaconna because I know so many women in music, and of course Black women specifically because I'm Black, so Black women love me, and we
Okay.
we click. So I know a lot of Black women, and there's just so many who like don't get paid what they deserve to, don't get the spotlight that they deserve. Like they're very behind the scenes. Like there's so many music artists where it's like all of them have like at least one Black woman on their
At least
team, but
one, yeah.
yeah.
At least one.
Yeah. So
It's
someone
so
asked
it's a,
who's released.
yeah, it
Oh,
was
we were
Zaya.
talking about Zaya Bell.
Yeah, we're talking about Zaya Bell. It's so crazy, like as you were just like recounting the things, because I think when you're in it and you're doing it, you're not doing it like a
Right.
checklist. It's just because like you're in it and you're a team player. So like even hearing you like echo that, I'm like, oh damn, that did happen. Like, oh damn, I did do that. Like
and
I,
and and that's the
forgot.
thing, like we were talking about curated events, like we had this whole yams and rolls thing in our back pocket that we wanted to partner with weed brands for. My friend is throwing a Grammys party next week and I needed weed band, and who did I hit up? Jaconna. You know what I'm saying? Like that when I say a Swiss Army knife of like not only someone who helps, but someone who always comes through. And like
Thank
when
you.
I asked it, you didn't just send me a name. You sent me a list of people. You sent me details about these people. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yes.
just ugh, love it. Love you. I could go
Oh,
on all day about you, but I would like you to introduce yourself and
yeah.
tell us, you know, some of the great things that you have done, what you're doing over at
Yeah.
Vice, and then, you know, we could get it popping.
Cool. So hey everyone on this live. I'm Jaconna Jacobs. A little bit about me, or what I like to kind of call myself. I just like to call myself a creative with good ideas and a good person. I think a lot of my storytelling has come from experience and a place of empathy. I'm also a Cancer, so I think if you're just familiar with Cancers, period, the Kali Uchis, the Solanges of the world, like I feel like we're just very much fluid in our approach, but we're also very open to learning and experiencing and trying and failing. And I feel like that's kind of even how I got here. Oh, what have I done in life? Let's see. When I was 21, I started working for Adidas Originals. I was the assistant product marketing manager for Adidas Originals Music Bureau, which was called Statement. It's underneath Adidas Originals, so it was right beside Adidas Skateboarding as well as Yeezy at the time. So we were kind of like a hub of brands within a brand. And so I was responsible for Donald Glover things that actually never came out, which I'm really sad about, but it's fine. But any music partner you can kind of think of, I was in charge of mood boarding for apparel, and then curating the product marketing element of that. And if you don't know what product marketing is, it's basically curating articles in a certain system, as well as working with designers to basically bring apparel to the market. I worked a lot underneath Pharrell, which was really fun.
Pause,
And
because we're not going to brush over that. Pharrell, what? I didn't even know that about you. I'm learning more stuff about you. What you doing, Pharrell? Oh my gosh.
so fun fact. So obviously everybody knows who Nigo is, as well as Pharrell. So during the 2019 Tokyo Olympics pack, actually it might have been the 2020 Olympics pack, where COVID kind of took over. I actually had pitched a friendship pack for Nigo and Pharrell. So that was like a really interesting time. But yeah, I was basically just aligned and assigned to conceptualizing and talking to markets and just working with designers. I think there's an art in having ideas but not stepping on the toes of designers, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
probably why you and I like worked so well with like the rest of the team. It's just like knowing your place.
Mm-hmm.
But probably most of you on this live probably know me for like working across Ivy Park. I yeah, that a lot of work went into that, but essentially, I wouldn't even say I was the assistant product marketing manager. I would say I was the product manager for more than 5 collections of
Oh
Ivy
my.
Park. I worked on apparel, footwear, as well as accessories. So,
So what does that mean?
yeah,
Does that mean that you're styling the looks that we're seeing in campaigns, or like what does
yes,
that mean?
yeah. This is the moment when you remember you've signed NDAs, and
Oh,
so,
damn.
so
The
um,
worst.
but what I can tell you is that basically what the job comprised of is every certain point of the calendar year, you find moments where you kind of have a dream phase with your team. So I worked with the accessory designers, I worked with the apparel designers as well as footwear. And so I made sure that whenever they curated their CADs, which is basically when they draw up the computerized version of articles. So anything like, for instance, if you all bought like a jacket from Ivy Park, it's sketched up, it's put into CAD form, and then it's sent to factories. But I'm the one that oversees those designs, make sure that they're sent to the factory on time, make sure we're getting samples on time so that they can be released by the date that Beyonce is promising y'all.
Uh-oh.
And then on and then on top of that, everybody loved kind of the big Ivy Park boxes that always got delivered, but nobody ever really knows the people behind the scenes. So I was also putting in the promo orders to the factories, making sure everybody
You was
kind of has.
making the list of who got the boxes?
No,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not on the comms list. So, no, I'm not on the comms list. You know, that is the comms team, and I love them dearly. I'm simply responsible for it. If you see a list that has Yara Shahidi and Solange and, you know, Blue Ivy, like, hey, they need one of this, like, I need to make sure that I'm ordering 50 of these shirts or 20 of these, you
Literally
know,
in charge
yeah.
of the
And
product. Hello.
charge of the product. Yes. Make sure things are moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the non-sexy things of working in sports sport, but a very rewarding
And
experience. So yeah.
very essential, like very
Yeah.
needed. And so how do you go from a job that is like that in fashion to now being the senior creative over at Vice?
Great question. I had an amazing manager. Even the story of even how I even got to Adidas is crazy. I essentially got into Adidas through LinkedIn, which people probably don't know, but a lot of LinkedIn stalking, a lot of chit chatting. It's actually because of Nike that I actually got into Adidas because there was there was a black man named Darian Burks. He was the art director at Nike at the time, and he gave me a list of people to reach out to while I was working for Vashti Cola. And he was like, hey, like, you should reach out to these people. And so my director ended up being the same person who actually gave Vashti her Jordan deal. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how that worked. In terms of how I even transitioned, um, COVID was a crazy year, 2021.
Right.
And working at Adidas is probably what people imagine it to be. It's people skating everywhere and people just were playing Pharrell in the office. Like it was a really fun environment to
Yeah.
continue to be in. But taking all that home, like having samples sent to my home, boxes everywhere, like having to work with designers on your laptop, like it just wasn't, it didn't feel like the experience that it once wasn't landing at that same energy. And so,
Right.
you know, a part of my job was not only working with like factories and all of these things, you're kind of the middlewoman of every process that goes into putting out a product, the comms, you're
Right.
part of, you know, the design chats, etc. But I think what isn't really talked about is like you're also a part of like the mood boarding. Like I'm part of the team that knows what that concept of that Beyonce collection is going to be about. I'm gonna see the mood board. Okay, cool. Parkwood sent us this. What's our take on that? Like, so there's a level of kind of like empathy and also the ability to storytell that's required because
Mm.
you're ensuring that whatever that story is, it's still translating to
So
design. So even as
hard.
there's,
That's crazy.
so even as they're showing you CADs, it's like, okay, this is a Valentine's Day collection. Okay, like we should not be probably putting out anything black unless it's a hero item that we really want to like sell year round. Like it's things you have to think in advance of. But I would say before I was on Ivy Park, like I was a lot more hands on as a storyteller. Like even with that Pharrell and Ego pack, like I
Yeah.
curated that concept. So a lot of even the work that I did on that team came from a storytelling point of view. Being on Pinterest, my manager forcing me to do a lot of research. And even me just wanting to do research too. And I think just because I was like very tired of the structure, especially during COVID, I was like, I'm still a storyteller. Like I still have stories to tell. There's still so many things I want to do. Like there was other people's stories that I wanted told.
Right.
Like Idris Sandu at the time. Like I was an assistant product marketing manager, but I knew you had a story to tell. So like even trying to get him to the table, I'm like, there's so many like black stories specifically that I want to tell, but I'm also just
Yeah.
like I have a love for color grading. Like I have a love for color theory. Like I also have a love for just creative direction and how creative direction can not only lead to a product, but how creative direction can land and curate impact that goes farther than something that's tangible. So I
Yeah.
think that's why I love storytelling so much. Like I also have a writer background. Like a lot of the things that I'm doing now really came from me being like a blogger in college and having writing internships. So I've been writing stories low key since I was 18. And so being able to kind of take that passion and just like the nerdy side of me who loves doing the research of just all things. I never really stopped being a storyteller. Like Yeah, even the things I look up or the people I look up, like I'm really just a nerd about the shit that I love. Like
Yeah.
that's just who I am. So I think I think in kind of just applying the vice, like I applied traditionally. I didn't know anybody. There was like no finesse or anything like that.
Right.
I really just I applied the very generic way. Um, and I think because like, you know, the Pharrell and Ego pack or like the stories that were told, even with like the Yara Shahidi stuff, like there was a lot of collections that were like collective storytelling projects, and being a part of that, I think Vice saw that as like an opportunity to grow me, and then being at Vice, you get a whole different element of what being a storyteller and working in production actually requires, and that's, you know, a whole, it was like a whole nother, I don't know, like jacket I kind of had to wear.
Yeah.
So completely different from product marketing, but in the sense there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It honestly, like, shout out to Vice to like not just looking at what's on your resume, but looking at you as a totally complete person. And because that, I feel like a lot of, I mean, the job market now is absolutely trash, and it's because people are not like everybody has short attention spans. People are not taking the time to do their research to actually look at what people can do because majority of these jobs they can be taught. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like people
Yes.
can be coached and developed. Like,
Yeah.
so it's really just, it's really a matter of, but are you creative? Are you the person? Do you match this role? Is this something that you're going to grow out of in a few years? Like
Yeah.
it's knowing those kinds of things and to be able to have the eye to be like, you know what? Even though she's in product marketing right now, all of these product releases are telling stories and that's what we
Yeah.
need her to do, you know?
Yeah. That's a good point that you bring up, because even as I'm thinking, like, there's a level of advertising that goes into product marketing as well. And so I think because Vice is an agency who is basically an expert in all things advertising through different like verticals and brands, I think they
Mhm.
were like, okay, if she's from the branded side and she knows the ins and outs of this company and can flourish, then she can probably do the same thing over here. That's maybe my assumption of maybe what they do. But you said something that was like really interesting too, just about how a lot of things are teachable. And it's so funny because I mean, I'm from North Carolina, so that's number one. Like
Yes, and
growing,
you just
yeah.
be everywhere. For like when I first met you, I assumed you were from Portland because you know
No,
all the Portland people. She's like, no, girl.
no, not at all. And no shade of Portland, because I love my Portland community. We still got a little group chat, and I love them
Hey.
dearly. But yeah, like I was just a girl in North Carolina, like going to school in Greensboro, like right behind A&T. Like people probably on this slide probably see me on campus at some point or the other. But I will never forget that, like I applied, and I always say this, but I really don't I'm really not exaggerating. Like I probably applied to over 200 to 300
Right.
jobs in between like graduating and getting that Adidas job. And shit was just not working out. Like that's just really what it was. Nothing was really working out. And I think that something that the recruiter who was working on Yeezy at the time, he was interviewing me for the Adidas role. And I remember I got the job and he told me that it was between me and someone else. And I remember I asked him, like, well, what made you go with
Right.
me? You know, like I'm just curious. Not it wasn't me trying to
not
like
not unappreciative. Still would like
right,
the job.
right. Still want the job. Please. Like
Make
still
that
want
clear.
the still want the transportation package,
Period.
please. But he was just like, yeah, like I just feel like you were extremely passionate with everybody you interviewed. Like I interviewed with probably 10 people just to get my role, especially in person, and nobody had my resume. No shade. They did not have my resume, but I had it, so it's fine. I had about 20 copies. But like he just told me like your passion stood out. Everything else is teachable. And ever since then, I'm like, oh, anybody can actually get in this space, you know? Like anybody can probably try to get this job. It's just really about how bad you want it and if you're willing to learn. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. That's huge. That's huge, especially in this fucking industry that we work in because the entertainment industry, you know, it has subsects like fashion, television, music, but it's all one industry. And there's a lot of nepotism. There's a lot of, just like people who don't deserve the position, always getting the positions, always getting these high paying jobs and all of that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of people like you and me. We didn't have any nepotism. We didn't have any favors. We worked for every fucking thing that we have. And we
Yeah,
continue to work, like,
truly,
you know,
truly. And even if
exactly.
the invite wasn't there for you to be there, like even me getting an internship with Ashley Cola came from a homie. His name is David Webb. He's like probably the best producer in the industry. But at the time, he used to film my interviews like on campus for free. Like that was the homie. And now he does like videos for Nicki Minaj. Like life is weird. But even at that time, like he sent me that internship opportunity and it said New York like students only. And I did not care. I was still applying to that regardless. And I
Period.
applied and I ended up getting it and probably staying on, I think, the longest on that team. So yeah, just passion.
Yeah.
Yeah, passion is expensive, but passion, it was worth having. It was really having. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so we are here to talk about music artists, though.
Yes.
So we want to talk about what creative directors do, how they help. So I feel like the first thing that I want to ask you about are like your insights into creative strategy and the importance of creative strategy helping an artist develop like their brand identity so
Yeah.
that before we because like of course we need to have music, but
Yeah.
like before we start rolling it out and shit, all of this creative, the brand identity, all of that is needed first for us to know
Yeah.
how to make the content, to know how to market you properly. So I want you to talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because doing creative direction for an artist feels slightly similar to doing creative direction for a brand. And an artist is essentially a brand. So there's a lot of overlap. And I think, and even like my process and my experience of like working with you and just like Zaya, I think what was really important for me to know was to actually know about her and to understand who she was as a person versus who she was as an artist. And so a lot of like my insight of her came from not only being a listener of the music, but just being a listener of her, like as just a person. And
Right.
so being able to be like, hey, like this is kind of like the thematics that I see across your content. Like you love, you're a social girly, but you also have a lot of like empathetic things that you tweet about. There's a lot of empathetic things that you sing about. This is my interpretation of who you are and what your creative direction can be. I think not only as a creative director, but also as a consumer. And I think that's probably the biggest piece is being able to wear both
Yeah.
hats.
Yeah.
And I think people forget that. Same thing as if you were to work at a huge brand, the Jordan brand or Adidas or whatever,
Yeah.
like you're not just creating something because you think somebody likes it. You're creating it because you are potentially the consumer. And in my experience, especially in working with Zaya, I'm like, well, okay, if I'm the consumer of this music, this is how I would love to see you. And this is kind of what a rollout should embody. It should have some really great, engaging IRL moments, which she was already great at. So in my
Right.
mind, I'm like, I'm just adding a little sauce of like what could be helpful, but she knows her audience and she knows herself. And I'll be honest, I think too, between myself and also creative director homies who work at labels full time, I think that's a big part of the disconnect sometimes is that the artists don't know
Hello.
themselves. And it's crazy, actually. Like they don't know themselves. And even if the project is done, it seems almost difficult for them to translate and articulate what the entire body of the project actually
Absolutely.
means. And even though they're passionate about the project, sometimes they don't even know what they want the listener to get out of it. And I feel like with Zaya, I got blessed in a sense because not only is Zaya confident in who she is, but she understood what she was singing about. She was obviously a part of the process from, the engineering to being in the studio at all times. Like she was so hands-on, in a way that I think a lot of artists are, but like there was like a nurturing element to what she was creating. And so I wanted to respect that. And I think as a creative director, I think one, it was really important for me to have empathy for her process. And
Mm-hmm.
two, it was important for me to just be a listener and distinct the difference of who she is as a person, who she is as an artist, and when those two things kind of start to bleed into one another. And so, in my opinion, a creative director is truly a translator. It is a translator of who they are seeing, what they are experiencing, and having a why for why they are building a bigger picture. And I think for specifically, the Yam Greer rollout, it was really just fun because I understood the Pam Grier reference. Like, I love coffee. Like, I already knew these things. I'm like, okay, I'm already familiar. I don't need to like rebrush on that.
I had to
But
ask her. I was like, so what's a yam greer? I'm like, is that? I was like, is that someone who distributes yams in the village? Like,
right,
and she was like, oh yeah, that would be me, huh?
right. I'm crying.
Because it's not like I don't know who
Yeah,
Pam Grier
right.
is. I just didn't make that immediate association. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
But yeah,
And even her calling her fans like the Yammies, I'm like, she's building like an ecosystem here. Like there
yeah,
is something already here. It's just we need to broaden it out so that not only does it make sense on the cover of an album, but also there's themes and elements from that album. Like the cover of that, like I'm not sure if people even know, but like the album cover was inspired by throwback old 70s vinyls, specifically like Stevie Wonder's like old vinyls. There was like an ashiness to it. There was a lot
mm,
of grit to it, but also there was something really nice about how simplistic like those covers were, specifically Stevie Wonder's. Like it would just really be his face and then like, a little bit of like grit or grain added to it.
right.
But it wasn't really much, like it wasn't nothing that was like a scientific experiment. And so like between me and Fart, who created the cover, it was just like a nice back and forth about that album cover. But I think when you kind of bring it back to like modern age, we're like, okay, how can this cover that's super funky, super grit also relate back to the website that we designed? How can it go back to the IRL moments that we're doing? How
Yeah.
does this also show up in the styling of her? Like all of it was like very 70s coded. Like it was pretty consistent.
Do you
And
hear
so,
that clicking on your side? Oh, I think it might be your earrings against
oh,
the
maybe
against the
it might be my
AirPods.
earrings.
I was like,
Oh
where's
no.
this click from? My bad.
But yeah, it's just, I think it's just like, I think being creative director is really just being good at being a translator. But I think what's required of that is one, never thinking that you know everything. Like you'll be humbled quickly. Like even being on Pinterest for hours, like with Spartacus, like and looking at Stevie Wonder covers, I'm like, yeah, I'm a Stevie Wonder fan, but that doesn't mean that I've studied the album art of it. So like even going into that and having like hour-long conversations about what made our favorite covers of Stevie stick out, we're like, okay, well, let's take those elements and add it to the assets that Zaya had already created with Nyla. So I think it's really just about being a great translator. And yeah, being a student, but also knowing when you kind of do know what the fuck you're doing at the same time.
Mhm.
Like, it's a very interesting balance. Like, I think one, in terms of like being a student, like watching like the footage and things like that Zaya had, but also just being like a really firm listener. And I think that maybe came out as like a friend, but I think also just professionally, I'm just like, okay, like what does she want out of this? Because anybody can have a vision for how a rollout should go, but okay, is it that she wants to like deepen community? She's huge on community. Like
Yeah.
that is her bread and butter. So like
Right.
if I'm going to come into the situation, okay, how can I be the best translator I can be in order for her to one, expand community as much as possible, talk to the community that she loves the most,
Right.
but three, have a consistent language in some aspect go across everything that she's touching. So yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like us as a team for Yam Greer was really great. I just feel like we did not have the marketing support that we needed. And that, you know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
wasn't my job. That wasn't your job. You know,
Yeah.
all of the elements were there.
Mm-hmm.
And I like, oh, who knows what the future brings. It would be great to work together in the future on another project because
Yeah.
that that was just getting our toes wet. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
we were just getting we were just getting started, and there's just so, and she has this world, she has this community, because like you said, community is a big thing for her. And she was popular on TikTok before brands understood the value of that. She,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like that was already her highest platform before people even thought that that was a flex yet.
Yeah.
And really shows like that she connects with people. She has relatable content, and that's the thing, is that her TikTok is not just music. Like it's not. No, it's her talking, like uplifting herself. It's her sharing stories. It's her being like a real
Yeah.
person. And I think, you know, one of the biggest things that she struggles with is like, how do I incorporate my music into this? And I
Yeah.
think that that's something that a lot of music artists honestly struggle with, is they either don't want to create content at all
Yeah.
because they feel like it's weird, it's corny, it's inauthentic. I don't want to promote my music. I don't want to shove it down people's throats. Or they like creating content. They just don't like creating content about their music because they
Right.
don't know how to do it in a relatable, authentic way that hits the same way that they can about, you know, all the other things in their
Yeah.
life. So
And that's
I feel
true.
like, you know, I feel like all of the things that God has put me through in the music industry is to be able to kind of bridge that gap for music artists, because I have so much work with business people, and I have a lot of artist friends. I know how they think. I be
Yeah.
talking to them, they be like, Jazz, help me with my music. Oh, what's the last thing you did? Well, you know, I posted about my video, and I posted about my song. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Like, oh, okay.
I'm waiting for I'm waiting for them to tell me what else they did to promote their music. And you know, and that's the thing too. Music artists are way too cool, bro. They way too cool. Like I'm not about to tell you I am. Like you know, and it's just like,
Yeah.
yes.
And sometimes I feel like, I mean, that's a good point. Like, even to what you were saying about TikTok, I feel like, and even goes back to artist development too. It's just like, if there's already artists questioning their own material, then the last thing they're thinking about is how I'm going to market this, because they don't even know, you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't even understand the importance of their project or who they're talking to. It's like, it's extremely important to know who you're talking to at all times. Like, at all times. And I think that, especially when not even just TikTok content, but just doing anything. I think when I first moved to even New York, um, my friend Yano, shout out to Yano, used to work for Colors, but he was managing an amazing artist by the name of Hush Forte. And they wanted to do a concept to where they just invited friends and family of Hush to watch the short film that was connected to his album, but they wanted to have kind of like an interview series Q&A moment happening in between. They're like, hey, like we want you to moderate it. I'm like, okay, sure. And we did it, and it's interesting because it's like I had never seen or been a part of anything like that before, but I'm like, artists just have to get creative of, I guess, this like what type of moments they want their music to surround, no matter if it's small or big. If it's an intimate friends and family listening moment, then cool, like let that be that. Like maybe TikTok isn't your thing, or if you want to have a pop-up at, you know, Cafe is Really, which is like a really small club that, you know, promotes a lot of artists, then cool, like do that. If you want to do a short film, do a short film. Like, I think it's just really important for artists to know themselves. It all just comes back to identity at the end of the day. Because I think once you know that, you're going to know what you're comfortable with and then what you're uncomfortable with, but maybe willing to compromise with. But if you don't even know yourself, let alone the material, then like you're just kind of in it blind, you know, which
Being
sucks
in
because
it
then you do
blind.
your music a disservice.
Yes. I honestly, I feel like I feel like there's a big conversation about artist development because it's no longer happening as frequently at music labels as it used to. And that used to be the whole point of signing to a music label, is like, all the shit that I don't know how to do with my music, please help me, you know? And so they were developing artists, but it's because they would see a significant return on their investment. This was before music artists even knew what masters were, so they weren't even advocating to have their masters. Like, they would have like 4% on a master. So that's why Snoop Dogg could be like, I had billions of streams and I only made $25,000. Yeah, nigga, because your deal from 1992.
Yikes.
So you don't own the master to any of the,
Yeah.
like, you don't have any, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like no shade to Snoop Dogg, love you, but I'm
Right.
just
We
like
love
using
Snoop. We
that.
love Snoop.
We love Uncle Snoop, but
Yeah.
just using that as an example of just kind of like artist development. What is it? Like, bringing it back to what artist development? Artist development, to me, it starts with branding, which starts with defining your artist identity, aka your brand identity, because you are the brand, baby. Like, it's the same
You
thing.
are the visual.
Period. You are the visual. Yes. And we're just really some friends having fun. I
No, we
love this.
are.
But like, and that's the thing, is that, like you were saying, when you define your artist identity, you also figure out who you're making music for. You, which in this industry, it's called a target demographic.
Yes.
That's your target demographic. Think about that. Your ideal fan, when you're singing songs, who's your ideal fan? Even if you making that shit for you, you're a person.
Yeah.
What kind of person are
Yeah.
you? Are you a fucking soft girly who listens to R&B and you just made a project about breakup songs? We should be marketing this to breakup songs. We do not need to have FYP, new music, R&B. Like, that's just so general, just so
Yeah.
everywhere. Like, and you're wondering why you're not finding your fan base. It's because you're not defining who that is. Like, you're not
That's
doing this shit
true.
to market to them.
So interesting too that you raised this, because I feel like I learned so much about artist development and like working with you and Zaya, and I feel like I think I even have more empathy. I mean, I already had empathy for artists beforehand, but I think even now I have so much empathy for artists because if they're looking to labels for extra support, not even to define who they are or what they look like,
Right.
etc., but if they're just looking for that extra support, which sometimes can, you know, maybe it's more of a distribution thing, maybe it's more eyes, etc., whatever your reasoning for it is to go to a label. It's interesting because it's just like the lack of investment from those spaces. It like I don't think I really enjoy seeing that, because I think, one, it really just affirms me of how important it is to be your own advocate, regardless of labels or anything. And I think too, and I think Tyler the Creator said this a lot last year, but he was just like, okay, like he had a song that he like never stopped promoting. Like, yeah, it had been out, but he never stopped
Yep.
promoting it. And so like, to your point even earlier of like, sometimes it feels like artists seem like they're too cool to like promote. It's like,
Literally.
stop. Why would you stop advocating for yourself? Like, we want to advocate for you. So like,
Yes,
you
thank
know,
you. Oh my
like,
gosh.
promote that shit, even if it's in different ways. I don't even care if it's on a story. I watch IG stories so often because I think it's just like my way of like keeping up or whatever, whether it's with friends or like people outside of here.
Right.
But in my head, I'm just
The
like,
algorithm.
right, the algorithm. But I'm just like, fuck the
Right.
algorithm. Put that shit on the IG
Oh,
story. I want to see it. I want to hear it. Like, even if a homie is like, oh, I'm dropping this song on this day, like, okay, cool. I know if I put up an IG story up, like, I might just add that shit to the story just cause or because I like the song. Like, I think just knowing who you're speaking to and knowing what community you're working with, like, that shit is so important. And
yeah.
just never being so down to the ground about what you're creating that like you stop promoting your shit.
Right.
Like, I think that goes for all jobs, whether it's creative or not, like, and whether you're an artist or not. Like, if you put out some shit, like, I mean, hopefully it's not mid, hopefully it's great,
If it's
but hopefully
not a bop, it's gonna flop. It
right,
don't matter. You can do all this shit
right,
that we talking about. If the music's
right.
trash,
It's yeah, it's done for. But I'm pretty sure we've all seen it on our explore page. Like, we might have heard like a guy do a reel and he's like, hey, just drop the song. I know nobody's gonna pay attention to it. And then like he makes the same reel like 2 months later with the same song. And for some reason, like, that is really intriguing, but also beautiful to see because he's standing firm on his artistry. Like maybe the people that tuned in 2 months ago ain't the same people now. Like,
Period.
who knows? Even I mean, this also even applies to producers. I won't say his name, but even like a producer that I knew, and still like we're still homies, but like actually, yeah, actually I can shout him out. Hollywood Cole, who did
Hey.
D&D for Zaya,
Yeah.
Cam. So during COVID, like he was doing IG live mashups. And so that was really just him taking different samples, flipping them, and then just like curating transitions, etc. while on IG live. So he would be taking
Mm-hmm.
IG live requests, flipping samples, and he would make a beat out of it. It was almost like a real-time mass appeal episode,
That's
if anybody, or a rhythm roulette. It was so fire. He kept doing this, and then I think one day like Hit Boy joined the IG live, and now
oh,
like and
oh my
now like can't yeah, and now Hollywood Cole, he is Grammy nominated. He's done so much stuff for Jack Harlow. He did Barbie Dangerous for Nicki Minaj. Like he never stops promoting himself. Like
you can't.
and hopefully he doesn't hate me for using this example, but like I think that's like another example though of just standing firm on your artistry and never stopping the promotion of what you're doing. Like put the shit out,
Literally
please.
put it
Just
out,
put the shit out.
promote it. And that's the thing, is promote it at every opportunity that you can. Promote it before you release the song, promote it the week you're releasing the song, continue to promote it, set goals before you release the song so that you can, like, it doesn't, the streams and all of that shit doesn't matter. Set personal goals for yourself. Like, I just want this song to outperform the last song that I did, to know that I am growing. And
Yeah.
if I'm not growing, let me go back to the drawing board and figure out how I can grow.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you don't need a label, you don't need investors, you don't even need distribution anymore. You can do your
Yes.
own distribution. Like,
Yeah.
you really, like, so, and that's, if you do want a label to support you, you have to prove your value. You have to show your cultural equity. You have to show that I'm the shit, I'm the wave. Pour all the money into me because I made myself go up. Look at all this shit that I did on my own without you. Imagine if we partnered together. You know, that's what Victoria Monet did when she
Mm.
left RCA the first time and was indie, you know, and she might have been with Platoon. I'm not saying do it all on your own. You got to struggle. Like, no, bruh, there's indie labels, there's distributors who have label services who can help with your marketing, sync, all of those things.
Yeah.
But you're still an independent artist. If you are not with a major record label, you're still indie, you know? So work hard. You have to work harder. This shit is not easy. Because, nigga, look, if it was easy, everyone who is in church on Sunday throwing down on that mic would have a record deal and be famous and
Mm.
rich.
That's so true. Yeah, damn. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm like, damn, that's actually
So
true. That's
it's
so true.
not about the talent at all. And that's what a lot of music artists think, is like, oh, I know I could just go up. I'm so good. Da, da, da. There's hell of that shit out there.
Yeah.
It's about breaking through the noise. It's about establishing yourself as a brand, making creative that feels authentic to you, right? Not that cringy, did I just make the song of the summer head ass shit. Like,
Yeah.
no. Like, there's music artists who don't like talking to the camera. Cool. Now you can do faceless content. You can do, you know, you can narrate over images where it's like not you talking to the camera,
Yeah.
but maybe you filmed some stuff on a recordable VHS and there's some shots of the city and you're talking about how you don't like to talk to people. Like,
It's so interesting too, because like you're just making me think of things, but at the end of the day, it's like they're putting out a product. And
yeah,
like even kind of going back to like earlier, like even when we even started this live, there's like a go-to like formula that we talk about more so across like the product marketing space, but I think it honestly applies to just about anything. If you want something to be successful, it's 80% execution and 20% like the actual design of it, the looks and the feel. Like the looks and the feel are very important, but like what are you doing to back
and
it up? Like what's
that's
the
all they be
underline?
paying attention to is the looks, nigga. That's all,
Yeah.
they be like, ooh, I want it to look like this. It's like, girl,
Yeah.
great. But if you're only gonna post this 2 times, who fucking cares?
Yeah, literally. It's just like those big ass red boots. Like, you know, those like hype beast type big
Those
ass red
Astro
boots
boots.
that were like became like a thing for like 2.5 seconds. It was like, okay, this is weird, but it was 20% design, 80% execution. Like, y'all bought into it because they had it on your favorites. It was on covers, it was being featured. Like, the execution of it had way more value than the actual design of it.
Right.
So,
And they don't care
yeah.
how long y'all fuck with it. The money is pocketed.
Right. The boots was booting, so it
Okay.
don't even matter. The boots
It
was
don't
booting.
even
So
matter
right.
if you didn't like them for that long. It's done.
Right. It's done. It happened. Next. So
So,
yeah.
I know we talked about Zaya a lot, but I'm wondering if you have any other examples of just really great brand identity, like that you can see through. Like, I know for me, I always go back to Doja because that's like, I feel
Mm,
like you can just look, her brand identity changes as she does.
yeah.
You know, it's so easy to go back a couple years when we were working on Hot Pink and then to fast forward now to Scarlet and just see the vast contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes back to brand identity. So I'm wondering if there's any brand identities that really stand out to you that you've kind of seen that you can use as examples as well.
So there's three examples. One's a clothing brand, and then two are actual artists. So I'll start with the first one, just because y'all probably see me wearing this jacket a lot. But there's a brand called Clint's. It's Black owned, and they're sold and where they're primarily from, like Manchester, UK area. Clint's is like a Black owned footwear brand, but like their apparel and just the way they've rolled out themselves since, I don't know, maybe when they started in like 2018 or even prior, like there's just like a consistent brand language about them that when they put something out, like it's hard to even buy something from them at this point. You have to have a password, A, to even be on the website. And two, their stuff sells out in like 2.5 seconds, but I really think it's because of the brand identity. They literally use like two things max from a logo perspective, and they've just been riding it. Like, they have not changed up at one, like at any point.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm now starting to see them like on the hype beast and etc. But like every time they've had a rollout, like I'll see their jacket on Amine, or I'll see their stuff, you know, on Chase, aka like the hair. Like, he just knows like who to put certain things on, but he also know who his audience is, and his audience
Right.
are younger, probably like millennials to zennials age range, and people that just care about a
What's a
certain
zennial? Am I
zennial.
a zennial? Where you're like,
So
you're not the older, like, because I'm not like these 40-year-old millennials,
yeah,
but I'm also not like the 22-year-old Gen Zers. So it's like, is that
so
us?
so zennials, we're a little exclusive only because we are the last year. We came in 96, the last year to ever be a millennial, but we're also the year that took place right before Gen Z started being born.
Got,
So we're right in the middle.
gotcha.
So we have this
I missed it.
interesting
I'm
relationship.
born again. Damn.
Yeah,
Damn.
but definitely check out Clint's. Like, they just have a consistent brand language, and they've done it so well that buying their product now, like if you're not on that website in that first 5 minutes of launching, like you're SOL. And then like really, like I'm even frustrated as somebody who was there before Minnie. So
Right.
I'm like,
You're like,
damn,
I've
like
been supporting the
right,
brand. I need exclusive access.
right. But
Look at my order history.
literally, like what? Like, I've been trying to be a brand ambassador for Junior Clint, who's the designer of Clint's. If I'm gonna wear a brand, trust when I say I would do the research down to the bone. That is just who I am. I don't care about anything else. I used to also work at Zoomy, so this is when we had like Stussy and things like that.
Yeah.
So like I had to remember those things. I also think Stussy has I mean, they're a classic example, but their creative direction is, I mean, it's been chef's kiss for a long time, but I think they are a heritage brand at this point just because they know their brand and they know their audience so well, but they also know how to evolve with their audience.
Mm,
But from an
that's
art,
huge.
yeah, but from an artistic perspective, I would say I think Tyler the Creator. I mean, we can't come on. he is a walking brand,
Woo!
and it's
So good.
like what? When is he not wearing his own
Bro.
shit? When it's like I know people don't be wanting to wear their merch and shit. If you have cool ass merch, like wear that shit. But he wears his
You
own
should
shit.
make merch that you want to wear. Hello?
True. That's a fact. Cause yeah, why wouldn't you create something that you don't want to wear?
Be
That's weird.
your
Um,
biggest brand ambassador. Hello? Like what?
literally. And his style is so I mean, we've seen it, these past few like Halloweens, like there's a brand identity that Tyler has that it can't be easily replicated, but it's respected so much, like whether it's like the Chanel beads or like his Lacoste like collaboration or Golf Le Flair, like he is so great. Or even what he does with Converse, he is so consistent about everything he does. Like, no, that album you thought was just called Flower Boy, no, there's flowers on the fucking Converse. Like, there's things that just he makes sure that is just not only, I don't know, a repetition, but he also just makes sure that it feels like him. But he knows himself once again so well that everything he puts out just feels like an extension of
Right.
Tyler. And it's so beautiful. Like,
Right. And it's so, for me, it's absolute, his evolution as a music artist is fucking ridiculous because I think me and Tyler are probably the same age. He came out in 2009 fucking with cockroaches crawling over his face and him eating it. He
oh yeah,
had the
that was
whole
the moment. That was the moment that everything took off. That
the
video,
black eyes,
yes,
bro. The
yes.
fucking him. But it wasn't just that. It was him. It was Odd Future. They had a show on Adult Swim called
Loiter
Loiter Squad.
Squad. Yep, I was a fan. Okay, period.
Loiter Squad. Still watch that shit. And that's the
Yes.
thing is that if you don't know where that like little clip, how dare you give me something for my birthday on my birthday, da, 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 that's from Loiter Squad. And
Right.
that's him, that's his friends, that was his brand. But to go from that, like super like bro, because even that, like he was breaking black stereotypes. Like we're not monolithic, we are a bunch of different kind of people.
Yeah.
Here are me and all of my skater friends who like Earl Sweatshirt, Frank Ocean, all of these amazing people all came from fucking Odd Future.
Yeah.
And for him to go from like that bro
Yeah.
culture to where he is now, where he's like, hey, I'm a little gay,
Yeah.
and like everybody,
Yeah.
no one batting an eyelash. We were like, love that for you, King. Cool. So
Love
Igor,
that.
right?
That's
Like
such a,
that's
that's
so.
such a great example that or story that you bring
Cool.
up too, because like even with Odd Future, I was working at Zoomy, so I was selling like the OF like clothing line. Everybody,
Right.
all little white boys and black boys was buying that up. You saw a little donut, people were buying it. The stickers, always selling out. Like I loved selling their stuff, but it's so interesting because I've watched so many of his interviews, but I know that there was a time where like he had to kind of transition to showing himself in a more not mature light but really showcasing what his skills were, because his skills was already his skills, rather he was playing around or on Loiter Squad or whatever, but he was always extremely passionate, and regardless of what people's perception was, like he never not promoted who they were. And it's interesting because even around that time when that video came out, I think it was like the Yonkers video, but even when just like the splurge of OF was happening, like the internet was also, making a rise. And I think too, I don't know if anybody was paying attention back then, but they also made vlogs back then. I don't know if anybody on this live remembers that, but they also used to do like vlogs, and those things used to have millions and millions of views. I would be watching those vlogs all day and night, and they would be so ignorant and funny, but it allowed us to get to know Tyler from what he showed, Earl, like the entire group. So they really, I don't know if they even were cognizant that they were branding themselves that early, but they were,
Right.
just through the smallest
Just
things.
they were doing world building before that was even a thing, before people
Yeah,
knew to build a world,
yeah,
like to, and like that's my thing. I didn't even know they had a clothing line because that's not me. Like I'm not buying their shit, so I didn't even know. But to
yeah,
have a clothing line, to have your content that you can create whatever the fuck you want, which is what YouTube used to be, And to also have a show that comes on Adult Swim because you know your people are going to be watching, like just all of these elements. And it wasn't all just about Tyler the
Yeah.
Creator. It was Odd Future. It
Future.
was
Yeah.
Squad. It was,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like he didn't just
Yeah.
leave his homies in the dust.
Yeah.
Taco is over here, you know, acting on Dave and shit now. Like got a real
Yeah.
acting career, you know, because I don't know if Taco's a
Yeah.
rapper, but like everybody on Future wasn't a rapper or a singer, you know, and that's amazing to me.
Yeah, you got Lionel who's on beat. You have Sid who's writing, plastic on the
How do I
sofa.
forget Sid?
Steve
Oh my
Lacy.
god.
I mean,
But
yeah.
did Sid come later though? Sid came a little later.
So
Sid wasn't like
yeah,
2009
yeah.
OF.
She was like the extension, of what they were doing because the internet
Right.
eventually kind of came into play, and then recruited Steve Lacy while he was still in school
The
playing band instruments.
internet recruited Steve Lacy? Oh, why do I not know that? What? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but
I didn't know Steve Lacy came from the internet. Oh my god. What?
yeah.
Wow.
So that yeah,
It's so crazy.
yeah,
The internet is a band and then the internet is also a thing.
yeah.
So
It's interesting because even in interviews, like people will ask him, like, "Oh, like, how did you become a part of Odd Future?" I feel like Odd Future. I mean, that's just the foundational family. So it's like, like oldie. Everybody has seen the oldie video. Like, if they said it was Odd Future plus these people, it's like, okay, they're all Odd Future, but we have these like extra sense to it. It's so funny. The Big House TBH had said like if you lived in LA, they were always outside around their community. I did not learn till about 2-ish 3 years ago that like Odd Future is also very much responsible for bringing so many people to like Diamond Supply and like kind of hooking up like a different generation onto even like the presence of like Diamond Supply. So Odd Future is also like a fundamental piece of streetwear that people just don't talk about for whatever reason. But they're
mm.
I mean, Odd Future could really be a course. Like
Right?
they could
Oh,
really be a class. They are a master class.
honestly, for
Odd Future, and then
real.
Tyler, maybe like one exclusively for Tyler too, but both of them just deserve a
Let me do my
class.
thesis
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
evolution of Odd Future.
yeah.
Amazing.
Literally, yeah.
Okay, so I want us to transition into the Q&A part. That'll be like our last portion of this live. Sorry, I got a text message and got distracted.
Oh, you're good. All
But
good. No worries.
um so I saw one question that came in, and this is from Deja Bless. She said, any advice for creative directors struggling to find community to connect with to deliver on ideas, content, projects?
This is a great question. I think especially because I'm in the thick of it.
Into the
So I'll literally. One, thanks, Deja, for that question. But two, I think something that I'm learning is that similar to how we've been talking about artists on this live of like never stopping to promote yourself. I think that also goes hand in hand with creative directors too. There's a lot of creative directors that you're gonna find that are very, very, very low key that like don't even post anything. Like at all. And like that's not even a bad thing because they may have really, really strong relationships to where they don't maybe need to do that. But I do feel like one, it's important to promote your work in all aspects. Like probably when you go to my Instagram, like you're probably gonna see at least the pieces of work that like I really, really love. There's a lot other content that I create, but like I don't post anything that like I don't love. And sometimes in working with brands, you have to like compromise. And once again, you have to know your audience. Like if my audience is or if my client is Best Buy, I know Best Buy's audience and my audience are not the same people.
right.
So, whatever we're creating for them, like that is really for them. And I may not even post that. But I think one is promoting yourself, but I think two, I think utilizing your community organically. And I think for some reason, like I hate the word networking. I've been saying this for years. Like I hate the word networking. One, because it gives off the vibe that it just has to be extremely transactional. And I don't think it has to be that all the time. I think
Right.
in terms of building community, especially if you want it to be organic and authentic as possible, Deja, to your question, like one, I think just being in spaces with maybe like-minded creatives or maybe creatives that you admire Being in New York, like just going out on the weekend and in Brooklyn, like you're constantly kind of meeting people, whether they're from your timeline or they're a friend of a friend. And sometimes they're super low key and like you're like, oh, how do I not know about you? But it's kind of dope because it's like you get to meet them as a person first and not necessarily like review their resume to see if it's somebody you want to connect with. But I would say like the homies that have looked out or the opportunities that have came to me the most have come through either friends or people that are in spaces to where they're like, I think I can leverage this, but like because you're the homie and I trust you as like a leader and I trust your direction and I trust your vision, like cool, I'm gonna keep you in mind for these things. So I feel like it's one, just promoting yourself, and two, just curating community on an organic level. Like you're not gonna walk into like a Red Bull party or like a party anywhere and be like, hey, I'm like this creative director and I'm dope and like you should know about me or whatever. I think you should allow other people to maybe say that about you, but I do think coming into those spaces, being your organic self and being like, oh, like cool, like what do you do if it gets to that point in the conversation? I think being okay with popping your shit in that moment is very much like welcomed. So I feel like one, just once again, that promotion, but two, I think it's just like that confidence. Like closed mouths don't get fed, and I think that's actually something that I'm personally learning. That's why I'm kind of in the thick of that now because I'm learning that I have different communities of friendship, which I'm like very blessed to have. But I think something that even when working with you taught me is that you can have dope friends and you can also be okay with taking on opportunities from them and even asking sometimes like this is a real life example and like I don't mean to, this is not a flex in any sort of way, but I think this just kind of goes to the community piece. I have a friend named David. He's a creative director for Dreamville and he was one of the first people that I met when I first moved to Brooklyn. And even before that, like I was still in Portland and he was like, hey, like let's link as soon as you get here. And I'm like, who is this white man that wants to link up in Brooklyn? Like, who is this guy? I don't know this man.
I don't know this man. How
I don't
you
know this
even
white
know I'm
man.
coming to Portland?
Yeah. In my big mouth, I put Brooklyn in my caption. I'm like, oh, okay, that's how you know. But when we met, it was just super organic vibes, like nothing weird. And like now that is like truly, truly my friend. And like, even just him being in like the same spaces as me, or even him making sure that I'm in the same spaces as him, like that is a way that he's looking out for me in terms of opportunity. But two, like, he's working on the Cole and Drake tour that's this year. And we were just talking, and I was like, sometimes I feel like I'm having to like advocate for myself within a boys club. And I feel like I've been doing that for some time now. And he was just like, I just want you to know that like I am still looking out for those opportunities. So when there's a video for Cole, like, and I feel like there's a moment that you can help with that, like cool, like I got you. And I'm like, oh, that's community. Like, oh,
Right?
like word, okay, like that would be amazing. And I think too, like, just I mean, Black women, I think that's my biggest advocate. I mean, David is a rare example and a white man at that. But like but I think my advocacy typically comes from the Black community and specifically my friends who are Black women because they know what it means to have to put in extra work to get into certain rooms. But also I'm in a generation to where we are learning to like not put other people in like struggling
Mm-hmm.
positions. So like if they can make one phone call.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be a loop and an email and then a text. Like it doesn't have to be that. It can be as simple as, oh hey, let me text such and such. And so having that community of even Black women be on that type of time as me, like that is also like a level of community. So I think just, closed mouths don't get fed, but have a community of people that care about you for you versus like what you can do. Like just being honest.
Yeah.
Like
That's
they will
that
look out for you.
because that's my thing is that for me, I always say like, oh, networking isn't my strong suit. Da 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 da.
Yeah.
That's a fucking
Yeah.
lie. It's not. networking isn't my strong suit. It's that I'm very selective with who I share my energy with.
Yeah.
So I'm not the typical artist manager who's best friends with everybody or makes everybody feel like no, I'm
Yeah.
not. And I don't
Yeah.
have to be
Yeah.
for us to do our jobs.
Yeah.
I really don't.
You
You know what I'm
don't.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean that I'm like mean or anything in a way. It's just that I don't like doing that. It feels ucky to be fake to me. It
Yeah.
feels weird.
Yeah.
And I don't lead with I'm Jasmine Bogart. I'm an artist manager.
Yeah.
Like I don't like no, like we'll get there if we get there. But
Yeah.
most likely we're gonna meet because I don't go outside that often.
Mhm.
So so we're gonna meet at a release party, a Grammy event, a BET thing. We're already there for a reason because these are not just like open club events that anyone can come. So
Yeah.
that we're both here for some reason because we're in the industry in some reason. So just be yourself. And like you said, I think the biggest thing is to stop, like, talk your
Yeah.
shit. Like when what have you done? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm a music artist. I have a platinum plaque for my work on Hot Pink. That was my favorite. It was really amazing when I started with Doja. She was the Moo Girl. So to see her go
Mm.
from that to an international pop icon, that's one of the biggest highlights of my career. In addition to starting my own, like, bruh,
Yeah.
don't dim your light because
Yeah.
you feel like, oh, I got to be humble. Like, no, pop your shit, talk your shit because you never know who you're talking to.
Yeah, that's so true. That's big on you never know who you're talking to. Like and people on the side have probably heard this too, but it's just like my just mindset, regardless of if I'm curating community or like you said, at those events and like meeting those people, like you have to treat the CEO of whomever the same way you treat the janitor. Like I don't look at people of like, well, I'm gonna be nice to this person because I know they just worked on a New Balance brief. Like, what the fuck? Like, okay, they worked on a New Balance brief.
So
Okay,
weird.
I know people at New Balance too. Like, and what? Like those things don't matter specifically to me because it's like I know what it's like to try to get in a room, and I also know what it's like to like just never get the invite. Like I understand
Yeah.
both sides, and so like I think there's just I don't think it's even empathy. I think it's just like reading the room and being a kind person. Like
Yeah.
you don't gotta kiss up to everybody. It's definitely not that, but I think if community is a genuine part of your journey, and I think it's a part of most of our journeys, then to Justin's point that he made earlier, like you have to be comfortable networking horizontally versus like trying to meet the upper echelons and like impress them. Like no,
Wish.
you're gonna meet people like by accident, like truly. There's a meeting, I won't say the person's name, but there's a meeting with somebody that like I had reached out to him because I heard him on a podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and he was talking about his Nike experiences, and I just resonated so much with the things that he was saying. And he was actually a creative director over there.
Ooh.
His name was Ibrahim, and in 2021, yeah, I reached out to him and I was just like, hey, love the podcast episode. Like, I learned so much. Also, peep that you live in Brooklyn. Like, I'm moving there soon. Like, would love to align, like, whenever I get there. He was like, yeah, sure. Like, open to it. I'm like, what the fuck?
Right.
So,
Oh
2020, I'm
my
crying.
gosh.
So, 2021, obviously, that time has passed. And y'all, when you're living in New York, time is an illusion. Like, you're not really you're cognizant of time, but things are moving very, very, very fast. And something told me just this year, I was just like, okay, I'm back with just once again like being more and more of a student. Like I only want to continue being a student. I never want to put myself in a position to where I'm excluded from that. But I'm like, I don't think I ever followed up with that man. So I followed up with that man. It's been 2+ years since I followed up with that man. And I was just like, okay, if he's fucking with me, maybe he'll respond. If he's not, I'm just not going to get the response. And that's okay. So that's fine. Okay. So I sent him a message and I was like, hey, I'm back listening to this same podcast episode again 2 years later. And I just realized that I never sent you a follow-up note. And that's my bad. I was like, if you are one even still living
Right.
in Brooklyn, Like,
You're
let
still
me
here.
know. If you're still here, let me know. But two, like if you're still here, like I would love to get coffee, etc. He replies back in about an hour. He was like, yes, I definitely still want to link up. Like, all good on the timing. Just let me know what coffee shop. And February is flexible for me. So, like,
And this
let's figure out a date.
in the DMs, you're like DMing.
DMing him, literally. This is the shocking part. So, the next day, y'all know that Solange came out with her 4-act series. And this is okay, this is the crazy part. This is about 12 people on here. That's fine.
You said,
I'm like, because you don't want to block your blessings, but I think it's gonna happen. So the next day, Solange posts her 4-act carousel, and there's beautiful photos in that carousel. I read the caption and I read who the photographer was. Why is this the same guy?
oh.
It's the same man. I said,
Never
how
know
did
who you're
I
talking to.
manage? Right. God know who you're talking to, but two, it must have just been meant to be, because how in the world is it possible that I sent that DM the day before Solange posted that? Nobody knew about
You
that.
didn't even know that was coming out.
I didn't even know that was happening. I was like, y'all, I think I'm DMing a photographer for Solange, and I didn't know he was the photographer for Solange. But I'm like, I'm pretty sure this meeting is gonna happen. So fingers crossed. February is my month. I told him, I was like, January, I'm home. I need to like reset. But I was like, February, coffee. He was like, yeah. He was like, it's happening. I got you. I'm like, if this don't happen, we'll log back onto this live and we'll shout it out. But
Update.
I'm just like, what the hell? Like, but if that goes well, like, oh shit, like that could be a form of community. I really had just reached out because I loved his story and he seems like a really dope guy. But I mean, there's more that comes through it. I mean, God bless. But yeah, the divine timing.
For real. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to jump off soon. But do you have my, Instagram been messing up with me. So like the comments are frozen. I can't look at any more questions. But are there any more questions in there that you want to answer?
I don't know. If anybody has a Blessings in Feb and Beyond, thank you, Sid. Sid works for NPR. Shout out to
Hey,
Sid.
hey.
She's amazing, and she is just one of the most important voices of our generation, and I don't say that lightly. But yeah, as far as questions, if y'all have any, drop them. But I don't see any. So, but if y'all have any,
if you click
let me know.
I think that's where I got
on the question button. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, y'all. Well, I am an artist manager and we have a call at 2. So I want to jump on the phone with my artist to talk to her before we jump on that call with our partners. But this was amazing, Jaconna. Thank you so much. I love you so much. I just really love having these conversations because now that I am an entrepreneur and I don't work in the building with other creative branding, marketing, and music, professionals.
Yeah.
I don't get to have these conversations. And these conversations are really just like validating. They're really needed. So I'm really happy to, have this platform and hopefully it blows up and I use this as a way to highlight all of the women in the industry behind the scenes making all of this great stuff that people love that they don't even know about.
Thank you. I wish you could see the comments because there's so much positivity in here. People are like, I really love this live. This was really amazing. They enjoyed themselves. There's so much goodness in here. Maybe I'll just screenshot it. But
screenshot it, girl.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I think this was like a really, really helpful conversation and it was just so fluid and I'm glad it was guided by you. So I'm just happy to be here.
It was fabulous. Well,